I'm with Blue Planet Foundation, but I just want to share a few stories and some observations. One of my first is, anyone listen to the show Click and Clack when it was on the radio, the car talk? It's really sad that Tom Magliozzi passed away a few weeks ago from cancer. It was one of my favorite shows. Callers would come in and complain about their cars. But one of my favorites was when a guy calls in, a typical call, and explains how his car is just a piece of junk, and the pistons are seizing, and the transmission is shot, and he can't start it. He asked Tom what he should do, and Tom, in the way he explains these things really well, says, here's what you do: you pop open the hood, you reach in, you unscrew the radiator cap, and then you screw in a new car underneath that. And that's really, I thought that analogy was perfect for what we need to do in Hawaii with our energy system. We are completely addicted to fossil fuel. We've made some progress recently, but we have a long way to go. So let's start with that really quickly. Our current energy situation, this might be a review from some previous speakers. We have a 1 super tanker per week habit in Hawaii. We go through some 42 to 45 million barrels of crude a year. That's not all. We also burn about 1 million tons of coal in Hawaii, both on this island and on Maui. This breaks down fairly neatly into about 1/3 goes to ground transportation and marine, about 1/3 goes into airplanes, and about 1/3 goes into producing electricity. This has been changing somewhat, but this is where our oil goes. It runs everything in our lives. Cars, electricity, airplanes. And again, we're one of the highest per capita globally of consuming fossil fuels just because of our isolation in the middle of the Pacific. We've made some great progress recently, adding additions of renewable energy on most of the islands. The big success story is distributed solar on rooftops. Who has solar at home? Electricity? All right, you don't have any customers here, Colin? Sorry. Tell your friends. And then the other success story is we've been eating into our 1.1 million vehicles in Hawaii and starting to replace those with electric vehicles. And that's great for a number of reasons. We ought to get out of cars in general, but electric cars are a huge step in the right direction. But here's the reality. In the past, since 2008, we've really been fairly flat in overall BTU use of fossil fuel. That's the red line. The blue line is if you drew a line from 2008 to 2040, when we hope to be completely energy independent. That's the trajectory we want to be on. So it's relatively flat, some progress, but what's really hurting us is our transportation. That's what we have to convert over to renewable. If you're interested in more of this background and statistics on all of our energy sectors, we put together an annual report card, and you can check that out online, looking at all the data and how we're doing toward renewable energy. But here's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the fact that we have everything we need to change our energy culture. So I don't want to focus on the technology or the different roadmaps to get to energy independence for the state, but what's within all of us and within our communities and our social circles to make that change happen. But I want to talk about the human elements, and the human element's very difficult. We all know the right thing to do. We all know we need to floss every day, but for some reason, we don't all do it. And it's not because, well, it is somewhat because we're human, and we're fallible, and we have a difficult time thinking about the future. We're also pretty lazy a lot of the time, and we know what we need to do, but we just don't do it. And often, across America, we're super lazy. And then something else that affects us is if it's not our job, it's not our job. And some of us feel it's not our job to take action. It's not someone else's job to do that. So I want to share a few tools that we've observed that we can put in our toolbox to help people change their behavior and do the right thing. And here's basically what they are. We need to make the invisible visible. We need to give people feedback when they make change. Number 2, get barriers out of the way. We have to nudge people in the right direction and sometimes make decisions, make the default choice for them. And then finally, this is a social problem, and we really have to socialize kind of how we approach solutions to it. So first is seeing the change. This is something we learned as a kid. We need to, if we take a certain action, we need immediate feedback in order to maybe not take that action again. You really need to learn immediately. And if you don't get that immediate feedback, you don't connect the causation. And that's one of the huge problems with climate change is when we start our cars in the morning, the sea level doesn't come up in the afternoon. We don't draw those parallels, and so it's difficult as humans to really connect these dots. Then we rely on these smart scientists telling us what's really happening, and some of us don't do anything about it. You see some of this feedback, people who drive a Prius or some late model vehicle that gives you this instantaneous miles per gallon. People have cars that do this. And it really changes how you drive. I mean, it becomes a game for some people. I don't want to go below 50, don't let it go below 50. But that instant feedback really helps people change behavior. But you think about electricity, and here's one where we're doing a terrible job. You go to Safeway, you get your itemized receipt of everything you've paid for, you know how much everything costs. You get your monthly electricity bill, and you have no idea how much your refrigerator consumed, how much your computer consumed. You just pay the bill, it's one number, and we're kind of stuck. If we don't know where to take action, we're liable to do nothing, and that's what we do. So a quick pop quiz: which of these 3 devices consumes the least amount of electricity if they're left on 24/7? Energy Star fridge, your DVD set-top box, or a 60-watt light bulb left on all the time? Fridge? Who says fridge? All right. Set-top box. Okay, and the light bulb. Least amount. All right. Okay. Some smart folks. This is Kailua. So, refrigerator. You're right. The refrigerator. The new models are incredible. They just sip electricity. Whereas those set-top boxes, you feel it. It's hot. It's producing energy. And there's some simple solutions there, and that's getting a timer to shut it off, or just not use one in general. But this is part of the problem. It's not visible, so we don't know where to make choices. There's some tools around this. You can buy these little meters. These are Belkin Insights at Home Depot or online, and it tells you the instant energy use in real time when you plug it in. We had some students do this on Molokai, measuring refrigerators and consumption of refrigerators over on Molokai, so people could kind of get a feel for how much their home was consuming. Here's an example: if you leave your rice cooker on all the time, it's going to cost you about $80 a month. Then they have these whole home monitors, so you can get a sense of your whole home in real time. So you have your air conditioning on, everything running, your dryer on, and you can see what that's costing in real time. New smart meters, as the utility rolls these out, will also have that feedback, and you can probably pick it up on your phone or your computer and see that energy consumption. So these devices are good, and we can really get some visibility into how we're consuming energy. At the foundation, we were thinking, wouldn't this be cool, instead of just looking at a single device or a home, if we could do this for the entire island and kind of get the real-time energy use of the entire island. So in collaboration with the utility, we developed a tool called Island Pulse. And it's live now, islandpulse.org, and it shows the real-time electricity consumption on this island, where the energy is coming from, and how much we're using at any given time. And you can see throughout the day kind of the ebbs and flows of when everyone's using energy in the evening at 7 o'clock, and the dips in the middle of the night, how much is coming from solar, how much from wind, how much from oil. And our goal here is to just give people some insight into where our energy is coming from and how we're using it. The second tool in the toolbox is removing barriers. And as soon as you motivate people to do the right thing, the last thing you want to happen is to hit a wall and you can't get around it. And these are habitual barriers or financial hurdles or just institutional inertia that we have to get around. I mean, essentially our goal is let's get to 100%. What's standing in the way? A lot of these are habitual. We all know that we need to maybe dry our clothes on the line more often. If you live in Manoa, you get an extra rinse cycle when you do that. But one of these barriers was actually illegal. A few years back, a lot of homeowners associations prohibited the use of clotheslines. They thought it was ugly. And working with state lawmakers, we helped change that law, that you have a right to dry. You can actually dry your clothes. And a lot of it was just homeowners associations just copying other folks' codes and covenants. So some of those hurdles we just need to clear. Some of it's financing. You want to get solar, you want to purchase more efficient appliances, but you just don't have that upfront cost. There are new models out there that buy down that cost for you, and you can pay for the energy over time, just like you do with electricity. And now there's a new system called on-bill financing that's coming online that will enable folks to do just that. And there's a big pot of money out there to help people who are generally underserved and might not qualify for loans otherwise to take advantage of these energy savings by getting rid of that upfront cost. There's another big challenge that we have, a big barrier. A lot of folks live in condos or they don't have a roof above their heads that can support solar. If you live in the back, maybe Wanawili or someplace where you're just not getting a good solar resource. Other parts of the country have adopted something called community-based renewable energy, where you sort of hooey up, you buy panels somewhere else, and whatever energy is produced there is deducted from your bill. It's just like a community garden where you get a plot of land somewhere. If you have a condo, you can't put it on your lanai. But it's a genius model, and it really helps overcome a lot of the challenges that we face, just access to energy, but also some of these circuit saturation things that we've heard about. We can put these community solar projects in places where there's room on the circuit to accommodate them. And I look forward to the legislature. I know Ripley has introduced a bill like this in the past, and we hope we can move something like this forward. And then finally, institutional. This is one of the big challenges that we're working at the foundation, is how do we align our utilities interests with our clean energy goals? And that's really the biggest lever we have. And it's really getting the utility away from this model of kind of centralized energy production and generation to one that's a distributed model where we kind of democratize energy, we all share, and ideally they make more money if we produce more clean energy and make less money if it's fossil energy. And that's been kind of a central focus of our work. The third area is kind of nudging people to help make the right choices. You might have heard this discussed in the past, kind of is called decision architecture. And it shows up in places like this. You used to be able to go to Long's and buy a 60-watt, a 75-watt light bulb, incandescent. You can no longer do this. And this is because of a law, believe it or not, signed by George W. Bush in 2007, the Energy Act, which prohibited the sale of these incandescent bulbs. We realized that it's so uneconomic when there are better alternatives. Now you can get an LED light for under $10, but it's going to save you probably $100 over the life of that bulb. So that's one of those kind of nudges, is making the default choice the right choice. Similarly with solar hot water, 2009, the majority of new homes didn't have solar hot water, even though it's going to pay for itself in 4 to 5 years. So a bill was passed that required that almost all new homes have solar hot water. You can get a variance and get a gas water heater or an electric, but it's going to take some effort on your part to avoid this requirement that you have to have solar hot water. So we went from about 30% of new homes with solar hot water in 2009 to today it's closer to 90 to 95% of new homes in Hawaii have solar hot water. So sometimes we just have to make the default option the right option for society. And finally, the last one is making things social. This is one of the more powerful tools that we have, is group pressure. I know we all think we're individualistic, but we really look for social cues from everyone and kind of use that to influence our behavior. We are social animals, and this is a really powerful force. I just want to share a quick study that was done, looks like a decade ago now, an ASU researcher, Professor Cialdani, and some folks in California. They wanted to test which messages were most influential in getting people to save energy. So they went and hung door hangers on people's doors. They had control group and then groups of 200. Their control message was just, hey, it's summertime, we're using a lot of air conditioning, so why don't you reduce your energy use? And then they had 3 different messages they wanted to test. The first one was, reduce your energy use, it's the right thing to do for the environment, reduce carbon dioxide emissions. The second one was kind of a personal plea, hey, you're gonna save money if you save energy. And then the third group had a door hanger that said, be a good citizen, it's the right thing to do your part. So of these 3, which one do you think was most influential? The environment? Environment? Citizen? Saving money? Saving money, okay. So after they did this, they asked folks, first of all, let me give away the punchline. None of them. They really had no influence at all. But they called people and they said, hey, did you reduce energy use? And everyone lied and said, of course I reduced energy use. And then they asked them why, and most people said because it's for the environment or it's the right thing to do. No one's doing it for selfish reasons, that's for sure. And then they decided to test one more message. And this message was, reduce energy use because a majority of your neighbors are reducing energy use. Any guess what happened here? Actually, a 10% reduction in energy use. And what was remarkable about this, it wasn't just that reduction, but when asked later, no one fessed up and said they did it because of this message. It was because of some greater other good. So it's a really powerful tool that we have, and people don't know we're using this. Advertisers and other folks use this really well. It's time for us to put it in our toolkit and make use of it. So, there is a group that's doing this locally called O-Power. Some people might get these home energy reports. Has anyone received one? Yeah, and that's the message. It compares you to your 100 closest neighbors. If you're using less, you get a smiley face. If you're using more, you get a more than average note. They used to have a frowny face, but they had too many complaints from that. So it's something really powerful that we can use here. We try to integrate this in our programs, make them social. You know, people engage in our light bulb exchange programs, maybe not because they love light bulbs, but their friends are doing it. So there's some message there. There are other places you can apply this, and we're social people. We respond to those social cues. We have a project called weefficiency.org that's hooing up. It's crowdfunding funds for nonprofits to reduce energy use. Same idea. We're stronger when we're together. So those are the 4 tools I wanted to share as we're looking at how to overcome this huge challenge that we have when there's so much inertia built into the system, but we have to move very quickly to change the system out.